welcome to our channel. Today we're going to be diving deep into the book Think Again by Adam Grant.
Oh, yeah, I love that book.
Really good book. It's all about the power of, knowing what you don't know and embracing the art of rethinking.
We've all been there.
Exactly. Think
Yeah.
about it. We've all clung to some outdated opinions or, been proven wrong at some point.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So this book really gives us, I think, the tools to become better rethinkers, not just professionally, but in our personal lives too.
And it's so important, right? Because, the world's changing so fast. If we're stuck in our old ways,
Right.
we're just going to get left behind.
Exactly. So how do we avoid that? How do we escape that trap of being stuck in our ways?
Well, Grant, he introduces this concept called the overconfidence cycle.
Okay.
And it starts when we reach a certain level of knowledge, just enough to, feel confident,
Yeah.
but not enough to realize all the things we don't know.
Right. Just enough to be dangerous.
Exactly. He calls the peak of this misguided confidence Mount Stupid, which is a pretty relatable concept, I think.
Yeah, I love that. I think we've all been there,
Right.
where we think we've got it all figured out,
Yeah.
but really we've barely scratched the surface.
We were just at the beginning.
So how does this cycle actually trap us then?
Well, it's like we become preachers of our own beliefs.
Yeah.
We dismiss anyone who disagrees, and we end up acting more like politicians protecting their platforms than scientists, seeking the truth.
It's like our ego gets in the way of our ability to learn and grow.
Exactly. And Grant gives a great example of this with BlackBerry.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Mike Lazaridis, the CEO, he initially dismissed the iPhone
Oh,
because it didn't fit his existing beliefs about what a smartphone should be.
interesting.
And this, ultimately contributed to BlackBerry's decline, even though they were a leader in the market at one point.
Yeah, they were huge.
Right.
So that's a stark reminder that even the most successful people and companies can fall victim to this overconfidence cycle.
For sure.
So what's the antidote? What do we do?
Well, Grant suggests we cultivate something he calls confident humility.
Yeah, I like that.
It's this, believing in your abilities while also acknowledging that you don't have all the answers.
So it's that sweet spot between arrogance and self-doubt.
Exactly. Finding that balance.
So it's not about lacking confidence,
No.
but it's about being open to the possibility that we might be wrong or that there's more to learn.
Yeah, embracing that.
And, he actually argues that something like what we call imposter syndrome,
Mm-hmm.
that feeling of inadequacy
Yeah.
can actually have some unexpected benefits.
Right. He calls it a benefit of doubt because it can motivate us to work harder, learn more, and constantly strive to improve.
So people with a little touch of imposter syndrome, they might be more meticulous and thorough because they're always trying to prove themselves.
Yeah, they're always second guessing.
Right.
So they're doing that extra work.
That's fascinating how reframing our perspective on something like that can turn it into a strength.
Yep.
And this reminds me of actually the Affirmify Journey channel on YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
They have some really great content on mindset and personal growth, especially if you're looking for that motivational boost
Awesome.
to embrace these ideas.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, definitely recommend it. Now, another key aspect of rethinking that I think Grant really explores is how we approach disagreements, particularly in our relationships.
It's so true.
Yeah, so important.
How we handle those disagreements can make or break a relationship, both personally and professionally.
For sure.
And he makes a really important distinction between task conflict and relationship conflict.
Okay.
Task conflict is about debating ideas and challenging assumptions, really pushing each other intellectually.
Right.
Relationship conflict, on the other hand, that's personal. You're attacking the person, not the idea.
So one is constructive.
Yeah.
Focused on finding the best solution, and the other one is destructive
Totally.
and often leads to resentment.
Yeah, just bad feelings all around.
And Grant argues that actually a healthy dose of task conflict is crucial for growth,
Absolute.
both individually and within a team.
Yeah, and he gives the example of Pixar, where the director deliberately assembled a team of disagreeable employees for their film The Incredibles.
Disagreeable employees. I mean, you wouldn't typically associate that with a successful team.
Right. But their willingness to challenge each other led to incredible results.
Wow.
So sometimes a little friction can actually spark innovation.
That's a good point. So it's not about avoiding conflict altogether,
No.
but about approaching it in a way that fosters healthy debate and leads to better outcomes.
It's about having that challenge network.
Okay.
People you trust to push your thinking, question your assumptions, and help you see your blind spots.
Yeah, so having those people who aren't afraid to disagree with you is actually a valuable asset.
Totally.
That's like having a personal board of advisors who are going to give you that honest feedback.
Exactly. And when those disagreements do arise, Grant emphasizes approaching them as debates, focusing on logic and evidence, rather than resorting to personal attacks.
So remembering that the goal is to arrive at the truth or the best possible solution, not just to win an argument.
Right.
So how do we put this into practice? How do we cultivate that confident humility and embrace those healthy disagreements?
Well, that's where one of the most intriguing parts of the book comes in.
Okay.
The concept of motivational interviewing.
Motivational interviewing.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
It's a technique for guiding people to discover their own motivations for change through skillful listening and strategic questioning.
So you're not telling them what to think.
No.
You're helping them uncover their own reasons for rethinking.
Exactly. You're empowering them to make their own decisions.
That makes a lot of sense.
And to illustrate this concept, Grant shares this remarkable story about Daryl Davis,
Okay.
a Black musician who befriended members of the Ku Klux Klan.
Wow, that's incredible.
Right. And through genuine curiosity, respectful dialogue, and just listening,
Yeah.
he convinced hundreds of them to abandon their racist beliefs.
I mean, that just seems almost impossible to change someone's mind when they're so deeply entrenched in that ideology.
It is, but the key is that Davis didn't try to argue with them or lecture them. He approached them with curiosity, asking questions about their beliefs and their experiences.
You really listen.
He listened, he built relationships, and he created a space for dialogue.
That really highlights the power of listening.
Yeah.
Sometimes the best way to persuade someone is to step back and truly hear what they have to say.
And that's the underlying principle of motivational interviewing. When people feel heard and understood, they're much more likely to open up to new perspectives.
Right, and consider changing their minds.
Exactly. It's about planting seeds of doubt and allowing people to come to their own conclusions rather than trying to force feed them information or opinions.
Yeah, like leading the horse to water.
Right,
Not
yeah.
forcing it to drink.
Exactly. Now, shifting gears a bit, Grant also challenges the traditional idea of having a rigid 10-year plan for our lives.
You know, I think that resonates with a lot of people because there is that pressure
There
to have everything mapped out, but life rarely goes according to plan.
never does. He argues that our passions, our priorities, even our values,
Yeah.
they can change significantly over time. Clinging to an outdated plan can actually lead to dissatisfaction and unhappiness.
So what's the alternative? Are we just abandoning planning altogether?
No, it's not about abandoning planning entirely, but about approaching it with more flexibility and openness. He introduces the concept of job crafting as a way to rethink our current roles
Oh,
and find ways to align our daily actions with our evolving interests, skills, and values.
so instead of looking for a completely new job when you're feeling unfulfilled,
Right?
you can find ways to modify your existing role to make it more meaningful.
Exactly. It's about taking ownership of your work and finding creative ways to make it more aligned with who you are and what you care about.
And he shares this inspiring story of Candace Walker, a hospital worker who transformed a chemotherapy center into what she called the House of Hope.
I love that story.
Without changing her job title, she found ways to make her work more meaningful.
Mhm.
By incorporating these small, impactful changes into her daily interactions with patients.
Such a great example.
It's a powerful reminder that we don't always have to make these drastic changes
No.
to find purpose and fulfillment. Sometimes it's about those small but meaningful adjustments to our current situations.
Absolutely.
And speaking of adjustments,
Yeah.
sometimes rethinking requires us to look at our actions
Yeah.
instead of always trying to change our environment.
Right.
So maybe we should focus on changing our behavior.
He gives this great example of a college student who is unhappy and considering transferring schools.
Oh yeah, big decision.
Huge.
It'd be tempting to think that just changing schools would solve all her problems.
Right. Like a fresh start.
But instead of transferring, she decided to rethink how she was spending her time at her current school.
I like that.
Yeah, she found ways to connect with like-minded people, pursue her interests, and make the most of the opportunities that were already available to her.
She found that sense of belonging and purpose within her existing community.
Exactly, which ultimately led to a much more fulfilling experience.
It's a powerful example of how rethinking our actions, even in seemingly limiting circumstances, can have a profound impact on our well-being.
It's about taking ownership of our experiences and finding creative ways to shape our lives,
Hmm.
rather than passively waiting for external circumstances to change.
I love that.
And I think one of the most crucial ideas in the book, especially in today's world,
Yeah.
is the importance of embracing complexity.
Oh, for sure.
We live in an increasingly polarized world where people are quick to jump to conclusions
Yeah.
and see issues in black and white.
It's us versus them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like everyone is so convinced they're right, and anyone who disagrees is automatically wrong.
Yeah, and it shuts down dialogue
Totally.
and just reinforces existing divides.
And Grant highlights how what he calls this binary bias, can even impact how we talk about really complex issues like climate change,
Oh, yeah.
vaccinations. These are multifaceted issues with a spectrum of perspectives and potential solutions. But they're often presented as these simple, either choices.
Right. Good or bad.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that kind of oversimplification can lead to misinformation, polarization, and ultimately a lack of progress.
Yeah. It prevents us from finding solutions.
So how do we combat this binary bias then? How do we encourage more nuanced thinking?
Well, Grant suggests a few things.
Okay.
First, we need to become aware of the full range of perspectives on an issue.
Not just the two extremes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's often a lot of nuance and complexity that gets lost when we oversimplify things.
Right.
Second, we can highlight contingencies,
Okay.
the factors that might influence or change an outcome.
So instead of just saying diversity is good or vaccines are safe,
Yeah.
we might acknowledge that there are situations where those statements might not hold true,
Right. It's about being more precise and nuanced in our communication.
even if it makes us sound less certain.
Exactly.
Right.
It's about embracing the fact that we don't have all the answers and our understanding is constantly evolving.
Yeah.
And finally, we can avoid using language that reinforces that binary thinking,
Okay.
such as labeling people as believers or deniers.
Right.
It's about finding more neutral language that allows for dialogue and understanding.
It's about remembering that skepticism is healthy, but denial is not.
Exactly. It's about being open to new information, even if it challenges our existing beliefs. And this leads to another important distinction that Grant makes,
Okay.
the difference between perspective taking and perspective seeking.
Okay. That sounds interesting.
Yeah.
What's the difference?
So perspective taking is about trying to imagine what it's like to be in someone else's shoes.
Trying to understand their point of view
Yeah.
and why they might hold certain beliefs.
But Grant argues that perspective taking can actually be limiting because we often project our own assumptions and biases onto the other person.
So we might end up with this distorted view of their actual perspective.
Exactly. Perspective seeking, on the other hand, is about actively engaging with the other person,
Okay.
asking questions and listening to their responses.
So you're really trying to gain a deeper understanding
Yeah, you're gathering information.
of their unique perspective.
It's about approaching the conversation with genuine curiosity and a willingness to learn.
Rather than assuming we already know what the other person thinks or feels.
Right.
Which is so easy to do.
Oh, it's so easy.
Especially with people who hold very different views from our own.
Yeah.
And that's when it's most important, I think,
Yes, sure.
to really try to understand where they're coming from.
It's about building bridges instead of walls, finding common ground, and creating a space for respectful dialogue.
It's recognizing that we all have blind spots.
We do.
And the only way to truly understand someone else's perspective is to engage with them directly.
I love that.
And this brings us to another point. Grant makes the importance of acknowledging the complexity of emotions,
Yes.
both our own and those of others.
It's so true.
It's easy to think that emotions are simple. You're either happy or sad, angry or calm.
Yeah.
But the reality is, our emotional landscape is so much more nuanced than that.
We often experience multiple emotions simultaneously.
Yeah.
And those emotions can be influenced by so many things.
Yeah, both internal and external.
Exactly.
Yes.
So instead of trying to suppress or deny certain emotions,
Yeah,
it's important to acknowledge and explore them.
to understand where they're coming from and how they're impacting our thoughts and behaviors.
Right.
And this is especially important when we're having difficult conversations,
Oh, for sure.
particularly those involving sensitive or controversial topics. If we're not aware of our own emotional state, we're more likely to react defensively
Yeah.
or misinterpret the other person's intentions.
Absolutely. It can derail a conversation
Exactly.
and prevent any real understanding from happening.
So how do we manage those emotions then in a way that's constructive?
Well, Grant suggests that expressing a range of emotions, including uncertainty or confusion, can actually make us more persuasive and relatable.
Really? So being vulnerable
Yeah.
is actually a strength in that sense.
It shows that you're not afraid to be vulnerable,
Right.
that you're open to learning, and that you're approaching the conversation with humility rather than arrogance.
And it shows that you're not trying to win an argument, but you're trying to have a genuine dialogue
Right.
and find common ground.
Exactly.
I like that. Now, all of these insights about rethinking, I think, are incredibly valuable, not just for us as individuals, but for organizations, even society as a whole.
Sure.
Grant argues that fostering a culture of rethinking is crucial for progress and innovation, for solving these complex problems that we're facing,
Absolutely.
and for creating a more just and equitable world.
I love that.
So how do we actually cultivate this mindset of rethinking, both in ourselves and in others?
Well, he offers several practical suggestions. One is to encourage more questioning and critical thinking, especially in educational settings.
You know, that's so important to teach students how to evaluate information, challenge assumptions, and form their own conclusions.
Not just memorizing facts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just accepting what they're told at face value.
Right. He gives an example of a teacher who used an outdated history textbook to illustrate how perspectives and narratives can change over time.
What a powerful lesson.
Yeah.
It's showing students that knowledge isn't static. It's constantly evolving.
Right.
And it's important to be open to revising our understanding
Yeah.
as new information emerges.
And it's not just about questioning information,
Right.
but also questioning our own beliefs and assumptions.
It's about developing that inner BS detector, as Hemingway put it,
Yes.
to help us discern truth from falsehood bias, from objectivity.
I love that Grant also emphasizes the importance of creating environments where it's safe to be wrong, to admit mistakes, and to change our minds.
That goes back to the idea of psychological safety
It does.
that we were talking about earlier.
It's about fostering a culture where people feel comfortable taking risks, experimenting, and learning from their failures without fear of judgment or retribution.
And this applies not just to workplaces, but families, communities, and even society as a whole.
For sure.
When we create spaces where it's okay to be wrong,
Yeah.
we open up the possibility for growth, innovation, and meaningful change.
I love that.
Now, as we wrap up our deep dive into thinking, again,
Yeah.
I have to say this book has been a real eye-opener for me. It's given me so much to think about, and I know it will stay with me long after I finish reading it.
Me too.
It's a powerful reminder that we all have the capacity to rethink, to learn, and to grow, regardless of our age, our background, or our current beliefs.
It's never too late to change your mind.
Exactly. It's about embracing the joy of being wrong, the excitement of discovery, and the power of knowing what you don't know.
I love that. And if you're looking to further enhance your rethinking skills with additional resources like courses and ebooks, you might find lingopediamagazine.com to be a valuable resource.
Yeah, that's a great platform for those who are eager to continue their journey of intellectual growth and exploration.
Absolutely.
And remember, rethinking is a lifelong endeavor. It's not something we do once and then forget about.
Right.
It's a continuous process of questioning, learning, and adapting.
It's a journey.
So as we close out this episode, we leave you with this provocative question. What's one belief you've held on to for too long? And what would it look like to rethink it?
Take some time to reflect on that and see where your rethinking journey takes you.
That's a great question to think about. And as always, don't forget to subscribe, share, and like this podcast.
Please do.
We'll be back next week with another deep dive into the world of ideas.
And the only way to truly understand someone else's perspective is to, engage with them directly. And this connects with another crucial point. Grant makes the importance of acknowledging the complexity of emotions, both
Yeah.
our own and those of others.
It's so easy to fall into that trap of thinking that emotions are just, simple. You're happy or you're sad, you're angry or you're calm.
Right.
But it's so much more nuanced than that.
Absolutely. We often experience, multiple emotions at the same time.
Yeah.
And those emotions can be influenced by so many different factors.
Both internal and external.
Exactly. So instead of trying to suppress or deny certain emotions,
Right.
it's important to acknowledge them and explore them.
Understand where they're coming from, how they're impacting us.
Exactly. And this is especially important, I think, when we're having difficult conversations.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Particularly those involving sensitive or controversial topics. If we're not aware of our own emotional state, we're more likely to react defensively or misinterpret what the other person is saying.
Yeah, it can totally derail a conversation
Absolutely.
and prevent any real understanding from happening.
Exactly. So Grant suggests that expressing a range of emotions, including uncertainty or even confusion,
Okay.
can actually make us more persuasive and relatable.
So it's kind of counterintuitive,
It is.
but I can see how that vulnerability
Yeah.
could actually make you more approachable.
It shows that you're not afraid to admit that you don't have all the answers, that you're open to learning,
Yeah.
and that you're approaching the conversation with humility.
Not arrogance.
Yeah, exactly.
And it shows that you're really trying to have a genuine conversation
Right.
and connect.
Find that common ground.
Yeah. Now, all of these insights about rethinking are so valuable, not just for us as individuals,
Right.
but I think for organizations and, even society as a whole.
Absolutely.
Grant argues that fostering a culture of rethinking is crucial for progress and innovation,
Yes.
for solving these complex problems that we're facing,
Yeah.
and for creating a more just and equitable world.
I love that.
So how do we actually cultivate this mindset of rethinking, both in ourselves and in others? What are some practical steps we can take?
Well, Grant offers several suggestions. One is to encourage more questioning and critical thinking, especially in educational settings.
Yeah, that's so important. It's about teaching students how to evaluate information challenge assumptions.
Not just memorizing facts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And not just blindly accepting what they're told.
Right. He gives this example of a teacher who used an outdated history textbook
Oh, wow.
to illustrate how perspectives and narratives can change over time.
Yeah, what a great way to show that knowledge isn't static,
Right.
that it's constantly evolving,
Exactly.
and that we should always be open to revising our understanding as new information emerges.
And it's not just about questioning the information we receive, but also questioning our own beliefs and assumptions.
Developing that inner BS detector that Hemingway talked about
I love that.
to help us discern truth from falsehood bias, from objectivity.
Grant also emphasizes the importance of creating environments where it's safe to be wrong, to admit mistakes, and to change our minds.
And that goes back to that idea of psychological safety
It does.
that we talked about earlier.
It's about fostering a culture where people feel comfortable taking risks, experimenting, and learning from their failures without fear of judgment or retribution.
And that applies not just to workplaces, but to families, communities, even society as a whole.
Absolutely.
When we create those spaces where it's okay to be wrong, we open up the possibility for growth, for innovation, and for meaningful change.
I think that's so important, Mina.
Too.
Yeah.
Especially in today's world where there's just so much pressure to be right all the time.
There is.
Now, as we wrap up our deep dive into Think Off Trees, again,
Yeah.
I have to say this book has been a real eye-opener for me.
Me too. It's given me so much to think about.
It really has.
And I know I'll keep coming back to it.
Yeah. It's a powerful reminder that we all have that capacity to rethink, to learn, and to grow, regardless of our age, our background, or our current beliefs.
It's never too late to change your mind.
Exactly. It's about embracing the joy of being wrong,
Yeah.
the excitement of discovery, and the power of, knowing what you don't know.
I love that. And if you're looking to further enhance those rethinking skills with some additional resources like courses and ebooks, you might find lingopediamagazine.com to be a valuable resource.
That's a great platform for those who are eager to continue on that journey of intellectual growth and exploration.
Absolutely.
And remember, rethinking is a lifelong endeavor.
It is.
It's not something you do once and then you're done.
Right. It's a continuous process.
It's an ongoing process of questioning, learning, and adapting.
A journey.
So as we close out this episode, we leave you with this provocative question. What's one belief that you've held onto for too long? And what would it look like to rethink it?
That's a good one. Take some time to reflect on that and see where your rethinking journey takes you.
Absolutely. And as always, don't forget to subscribe, share, and like this podcast.
Please do.
We'll be back next week with another deep dive into the world of ideas.
It's never too late to change your mind.
Exactly. It's about embracing the joy of being wrong, the excitement of discovery, and the power of knowing what you don't know.
And if you are looking to enhance your rethinking skills, with additional resources like courses and ebooks, you might find lingopediamagazine.com to be a valuable resource.
It's a great platform. For those who are eager to continue on their journey of intellectual growth and exploration.
For sure.
And remember, rethinking is a lifelong endeavor. It's not something we do once and then we're done.
It's a process.
It's a continuous process of questioning, learning, and adapting.
It's a journey.
So as we close out this deep dive into Think It, again, we'll leave you with this provocative question. What's one belief that you've held on to for too long? What would it look like to rethink it?
Ooh, that's a good one to ponder.
Yeah,
Take some time to reflect on that and see where your rethinking journey takes you.
it's a great question for all of us to consider. And as always, don't forget to subscribe, share, and like this podcast.
We appreciate it.
We'll be back next week with another deep dive into the world of ideas.